Hi guys, welcome to a quick review on how to make fractions into decimals, and we're going to study our Cornell notes. The question is, how do I convert a fraction to a decimal? What is my process? You'll notice at the beginning I numbered the section of my notes. I started with number one, the vocabulary, and instead of circling one word at a time, I just circled all three important vocabulary words. The words that we would be using in our lesson are terminating, repeating, and bar notation. And I will quickly talk about those words when they appear in the working part of our notes. So if you look at section 2, this is the example section. This is the part I think that's going to help you the most right now. If a problem says to convert a fraction into a decimal, your process, if we want to answer the question, is this word right here. It is division. And so I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to circle it because that is a huge key word. The process is division. We may not like to divide, but with more practice, of course, we always get better. So one thing I'm trying to work on to teach you guys is how do I make that fraction into that division problem. And my suggestion is you line up your pencil and then you knock your pencil over, you rotate it over. And that will help you remember that your numerator goes inside and becomes the dividend. Okay? So again, you take your pencil and you rotate it over. Okay? As you are dividing, notice that I had to add a decimal point here and bring my decimal up. And I put a 0 here because 2 does not divide into 1. So I'm having to take now 2 divided into the number 10. I know that 2 goes into 10 5 times. Make sure you put the 5 on top of the 0 so that it lines up with the number 10. 5 times 2 is 10. I subtract them and I determine there is 0 for a remainder. So this division process takes me from 1/2 to its equivalent decimal, which is 0.5, which we actually say is 5/10. 5/10. This decimal is called terminating because you've got no remainder here and the answer stops. To terminate means to stop. I am still in section 2 of my notes, but I am going to draw a separation line because I have a separate example here. The example here takes a fraction, and of course it needs to be as a decimal point. So I'm going to use my same process where I take my pencil and I rotate it over into a division problem. Notice that the numerator is inside, it is the dividend now. Our denominator becomes our divisor on the outside. 6 cannot go into 5. So again, you're going to add that decimal, bring it up, and you're going to add your first 0, and I'll put a line through it. This now becomes the number 50. So what I did on the day that we took these notes is I skip counted or used multiples of 6 until I got close to 50 without going over. You'll notice that 54 is down here and it's scribbled out because that's over. So I went to 48 and now I'm going to count how many skips did I take. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's where this 8 comes from. And that 8's on top of the 0. 8 times 6 is 48. Now, subtract, and you get a remainder of 2. You are going to bring another 0 down. You're going to add it and bring it down because you're not allowed to have a remainder except for the number 0, which is nothing. So now I want to see how many times 6 goes into 20. And I go back over here to my multiple list, and I see, oh, 18. 18 is almost there. 24 is over. So that is 1, 2, 3 skips. That's where this 3 comes from. Put the 3 on top of the 0, and 3 times 6 is 18, and I subtract, and I get 2. Well, you can't have a remainder, so you add another 0, but then I start to see that there's a pattern here. Pattern. Okay, and maybe I want to draw a pattern. Heart, star, heart, star. Okay, just as a picture reminder, there's a pattern here. It's repeating 20, 20, 20, and it's not going to stop. So this one is called a repeating decimal because 3 is going to repeat or never end. And so to mark that, I use bar notation over only the 3 because only the 3 is going to continue over and over. The 8 is only going to happen one time. So 5, 6 is equivalent to the decimal 83 or 83 hundredths where the 3 repeats. Now, something you might want to mark in here is this is going to be on our test. So I'm going to put little stars right here that this part and this part is extremely important. This is what I need to know to be successful. And it's all around this word division. So I'm going to give myself even a bigger design. The last part of the notes you might find helpful as well. This is only if the problem is lucky and place value can help you. This method does not work all the time. This is a keyword. And the place value method only works if there is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, etc. in your denominator. So I may want to make a note like, when will place value work? Question mark. When will place value work? And again, the answer to that question is right here. It's only when you're getting tenths, hundredths, thousandths, etc. Tenths, thousandths. It has to be your place value words. And let me switch hundredths in there as well. If I have 3 tenths, I simply write it as 3 tenths. If I have 21 hundredths, I put a 0 decimal and I put the 2 and the 1 in such a place that the 1 has to end in the hundredths. Notice I'm adding extra material to my notes to help me study. I don't use a red pen because I like turquoise better, but it is noticeable and I can see. So back to the tenths here again. Notice that this is in the tenths position. Okay, 7 hundredths. 7 hundredths. You're going to put a decimal, and then you must put a 0 here, and the 7 has to appear here because this is the hundredths location. So, key word, main idea right here. That is your place value chart if you have forgotten, and it will help you. So one last thing, let's go through the top again. And I'm just going to add a couple more things to my notes to help me study. In this second section, where it talks about what I'm actually doing, I'm going to ask myself a question like, hey, how do I know how to turn this fraction into a decimal? How do I turn a fraction into a decimal? Question mark. And then I also want to ask, like, how do I know which number goes in the division? So I'm going to have to make some room up here. How do I know which number is the dividend? Question mark. And the dividend is the one inside. Okay, so these are some study questions. And again, the answer to that question is I take my pencil and I rotate it to help me remember. How do I turn a fraction into a decimal? I use division. Go down to the bottom section, which we need to number section 3. When will place value work? Well, place value only works if you have one of these magic numbers, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Okay, I hope this mini lesson helps you.